what's up? Welcome to another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. Good to be with you. It's the 29th day of November 2015. My name is Doug Owen, and I am your host. You can join me live Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, like you may be doing right now, at blacklistedradio.com. Interactive chat room, streams, all of that on the house. Plenty of exclusive content and accoutrements, cool stuff that you can get free of charge. It's free of charge because people support the show, so it's listener supported, and so really kudos to them. It is my website; it's dedicated to the show, and you can find all of that there. You can, of course, call into the program 800-313-9443. You can tweet at me at BLN Radio, and boy, oh boy, a lot to talk about tonight. Of course, I guess we should start in France. That's kind of where we left off in the last podcast, talking about, well, what would come from this crisis, the shooting, the Paris attacks, 130 people dead, and the amount of power being transferred by the French government into their own hands, and, of course, to aid in the international war on ISIS. Just looking at some of the headlines today, some pretty notables. What do you do in a time of crisis? You ban debit cards. Can't have prepaid debit cards. The few mechanisms for anonymity for a variety of reasons. Not because you're a terrorist. Maybe you just don't want everybody knowing what you're doing all of the time, and it's really none of their business. Well, one of the ways you can usurp the system a little bit, mind you, is prepaid debit cards. Those, no good. Of course, we have the climate talks coming up, and the World of Link are talking about money, and we'll talk about the new climate carbon mechanisms that the IMF wants to put into place. Should be pretty easy sailing, considering that because there is a quote-unquote state of emergency, aka martial law, in Paris right now. There is an absolute ban on any kind of protests or pro. So if you're out there and you care about the climate and you want Barack Obama or Ban Ki-moon, any of the people there participating to see your will, not so much. People are already being arrested, and we see, well, this new apparatus being used. I always say the apparatus, the police state, the omnipresent social media awareness system that the police are using in France, alongside NYPD and other private contractors. I should just note this because it's a noteworthy story. But actually, Lockheed Martin was doing private security research and finding out and targeting people that worked for Walmart and activists and other non-governmental organizations that had criticism of Walmart. So a lot of this is already privatized. How much of this is even in the purview of government, where it becomes this very, very shady kind of shadow government, where you have entities that are private and they cannot be FOIA requested. You cannot get any kind of transparency because it's private. There's just so many we can name here: Blackwater, private security, the same thing for intelligence gathering. And so that is what they're using to go after activists. And they've actually arrested some and put others on house arrest for just planning. They haven't done anything, but for making plans to, and just talking maybe on their PlayStation 4 about going to this summit. So there's a lot here happening domestically. I'll talk more about that as we go on, and I'm sure some of you have thoughts on it as well. So we want to get those. And your text, 512-222 3067. One of the other things that I think was pretty profound. I hope all of you had a great Turkey Day, by the way. A little Thanksgiving for all of the American listeners that celebrate. I took a whole week off, really spent a lot of time with the family. It was great. I saw so many things happen and change in just a week. And my son, going from just saying, single words, I want that or give me that, and actually, really developing. And so it's pretty miraculous. He's 20 months old, so that's kind of a thing that I am really thankful for. From going, have it, just 2 words, to I want to have it or I like it a lot. It's a big deal. So anyway, I was not out at Black Friday, but like many of you listening, I was really excited about seeing the videos. Unfortunately, I mean, does that make me a bad person? Does that make me, macabre, morbid, liking to see this? And it's not so much that I like to see it. It's just I like to see how bad it has become. And this year, it didn't disappoint. Plenty of people punching one another. Lots of interviews of... I saw this one interview with a little girl who said she had to keep her fist up. I had to keep my fist up just to make sure somebody wouldn't steal a TV from me. All in all, actually, pretty low sales. Now, when it comes to the $50 billion spending spree they expected, it met low expectations, I guess, but lower than last year, and maybe a little less violent. I'm not sure, but companies are now trying to do, and that's why one of the other things they're doing is hiring companies like Lockheed Martin to actually look into people that are Black Friday shoppers, to track people at their stores, other people that may be causing mischief. So it's pretty interesting to see the close collaboration between the government, the privatized military-industrial complex, and your local Walmart. And I know some of you are, screaming at your computers, what about the underground bases at Walmart? They may very well be there. There's some weird stuff going on at Walmart. And, and beyond slave labor, beyond all of the other things that are going on at Walmart, pretending to recycle batteries and taking out insurance policies on their elderly door greeters, which I don't even think they have anymore. It's pretty dismal when you go there. I'm just not a big fan. If you have to and you live out in the middle of nowhere, which I've struggled to get there this year. You don't have a lot of options. So I understand how people now look to the internet and look to Amazon and other services, because before you know it, you'll have a drone delivering you organic produce. How great will that be? That's some of the things that we have to look forward to in the future. Well, anyway, the future seems grim. If you are at COP21, the future is nigh. We are all going to be dead if we don't get a legally binding / for the United States government and all of their allies, a non-binding agreement and lots of cash at this annual confab. Now, what will come out of this is more financial schemes, more ways to commodify and to sell the planet and the cleaning of the planet, which to this point has been rife with scam, rife with corruption. Solyndra, I mean, give you 1,000 examples. It would bore you to look at all of the money. I mean, in Italy, I remember a story about how the mafia, the Italian mob, had basically rigged and stolen a bunch of money that was for these windmills. And basically, they half built them. These turbines never really came to fruition because Eddie got a deal kind of thing. And it was just one micro example of how any of these huge government projects, become paydays for criminals, people in the government. So the timing for this terrorist event couldn't have been better for the French government to have this here in Paris, because the heightened sense of security, the absolute lawlessness by the government. I mean, it doesn't matter. There's no warrants, home-to-home searches of people, no warrants, no knock raids, French police coming into your house late at night to make sure that you're not out there trying to use your freedom of speech, for God's sakes, because, of course, that's what the terrorists want, which, in and of itself, it's pretty obvious as to who is doing the terrorizing. Now, ISIS is scary. They behead people. They do naughty things. But, when it comes to, I hate to say this, but compassion for the loss of life. If any government thinks that it's justified, the loss of life means almost nothing to them, and they think that it's well worth the cost of doing international business, expanding the dollar into new regions of the world to protect and lay claim to other assets and resources. I was listening to two guys on the Chuck Wagon, and they're kind of a crazy pair. You got Lindsey Graham and, of course, John McCain together holding hands. I don't know. Just kind of weird. Lindsey Graham kind of creeps me out. He's got this weird vibe. He's never been married, So, anyway, they're calling for 10,000 more troops in Iraq, 10,000 more troops, more to fight in Syria, which seems to be a place where all governments, the Russians, now with the Turks and their new beef that is ever convenient for the U.S. I should just mention this, that because Russia and Turkey are kind of now at this point where there are tensions, economic sanctions being put forward by Vladimir Putin. And I just went to one of the other big alternative websites, and there's a story there about the Turks closing the Suez Canal. And that would be a huge deal if the Russians were not able to get products through the canal. I really, honestly don't think that could happen at this moment, but I'm not a betting man on this. I wouldn't put anything on this not becoming at least a possible de-escalation plan, or really something, one of the many other facets to I hate to say it, but the unfolding World War Type 3 scenario that we have. Mass migration, we have international global powers at odds. We have I think really almost this the trilaterals call it the trilateral effect. Basically, good guy, bad guy, neutral guy. One of the three you're going to do business with. Russia being the bad guy in this scenario, because I'm in the United States. I think that people their citizenry probably see the U.S. as the epitome of evil. Popularity at all-time low, for Putin an all-time high. But you have all of these countries in South America, now so in Africa, that are either warming up to Russia or the United States, taking out big paydays. One of the ways that you give a government big paydays is through these new carbon scams. And, I appreciate what some people are trying to do. I really do. It's not to say that everybody there's horrible, evil globalist that wants to poison the planet and shoot chemtrails upon all of us to dehumanize or to use population control. But there's a couple of those creepers there. Let me tell you about it. There's a lot of those creepers. So they get all too excited about spending money that they don't have, and really nobody wants to back up. But it's a good pyramid kind of laundering system, and that's how it's been used. I mean, we talked last week about finding Mr. Hand, the CIA banker, and he was selling and still is military, high-tech military weapons to the CIA and private contractors like the aforementioned Blackwater. Pretty interesting, just pops up. Anyway, I guess I sidebarred there for a moment, but back to the point, I wanted to talk more about France. I thought this was really interesting, and it's not getting a lot of attention here in the U.S., and that is about the cocaine smuggling operation. Have you heard about this? The Daily Beast kind of has a hit piece on their website. I felt obliged to snip some and put it on blacklistednews.com for your reading pleasure. And it's interesting because we've heard about the Saudi prince. If you haven't heard about this, but he was flying allegedly, wink, wink, several tons of crystal methamphetamines through Lebanon that was going to reach ISIS fighters. And they have detained him. But I know that this is not very shocking to you because it seems like it's a reoccurring theme on this broadcast. Every 6 months or so, not even that long, we find some Saudi prince who's either beating his man-boy servant, sex slave. What was it? 2-3 weeks ago, we had another Saudi prince who was in, I want to say it was Beverly Hills, Bel Air, a nice place in California. And he had a woman tied up for several days. And he didn't have diplomatic immunity, but the case was dropped. Yeah, rich people get away with a lot. But anyway, it seems that every 3, 4, 5 months, we have another creeper Saudi Arabian prince doing something. So that's not that shocking. But when it comes to this scam, this is the headline: Inside France's air cocaine scandal. Politicians in high places helped 2 French pilots escape to the Dominican Republic, where they were convicted of smuggling 1,500 pounds of cocaine. Dubbed the air cocaine affair, the latest scandal in France reads like it could be sprung from the pages of an Ian Fleming novel. In late October, 2 French pilots facing a 20-year sentence for flying 26 suitcases, and this is pretty mafioso, of cocaine into the Dominican Republic mysteriously fled Latin America for their homeland. Pilot Pascal Foret and co-pilot Bruno Otis were convicted along with 2 other French nationals for smuggling the 680 keys of coke aboard a Dassault Falcon 50 jet in 2013, despite arguments by their lawyers that were unaware of the contraband. A pending appeal spared the men directly reporting to jail and beginning their sentences. So anyway, it's good to have good lawyers. Takes a lot of money, and you have to have friends in high places. So it was just last week that I was reading reports, or maybe it's almost 2 weeks ago. Le Monde reported on Nicolas Sarkozy being a target in this cocaine smuggling operation, and that the French government, they have a perfect opportunity to go after people that seem, I don't know what Sarkozy did. He had a lot of ties to Muammar Gaddafi. He had plans for the Mediterranean Union. I've talked a lot about that. So Sark is definitely an operator and a planner, but he's taken a lot of hits. And so I don't know if he's on the outs with the elite, if you think of them like that, like super villains. And they would have people that would be marked men. But Sarkozy seems to find his way into trouble. The French are pretty hard on the politicians in general. But anyway, of course, Dominique Strauss-Kahn, who was the head of the IMF, there's quite a story there. But anyway, it all goes back to France, Paris. So, the story now is that he was cleared. It was only because he was using the same airport, private jet, I guess like a private hangar that was being used to smuggle this cocaine. But anyway, here's the interesting twist. The right-wing Jean-Marie Le Pen, okay, and one of the National Front leaders, she is the National Front leader, and one of her assistants were allegedly on a boat, according to Daily Beast. So consider the story. It's pretty juicy. That actually picked up these two smugglers. And I don't know. I mean, I would hate to be these smugglers. Somebody wants them dead. They all probably want him dead. But they may be good friends of the family. Or they may be pretty muy importante people because they're trying to protect them. And they're not dead yet. So anyway, not a big story in the U.S., but just one of the other weird things that's happening in France right now, along with, and I would imagine that this is a warning, if that would be what, I mean, if you wanted to have somebody arrested and really, balked at, it would be to publicly shame them. And he had some stuff with his wife, too, who's a supermodel. Way too hot for him, of course. And that is the point of being highbrow and going to COP21, because you have a trophy wife and or husband, a beard, or you are there to sell new systems. So if you haven't looked up climate finance or carbon credits, you should do yourself a favor and look at all of the different schemes that they have. All right, yeah, we're going to go to break. I guess, I didn't hear the music. We'll be back.
Do-do-do-do-do.
All right, welcome back. Thank you so much. No, actually, it's not that I didn't want to go to break. I actually turn off the monitor so that way when I do the podcast, I can put the music in hi-fi or put any other bumpers, things like that. So it's for post-production, but I just had the studio monitor, or actually muted in my monitors. So sorry about that. Thanks to Ken, who's spending this Thanksgiving weekend doing the dirty work, spinning the ones and twos there at RBN. I want to thank him for doing that. All right, so, things don't smell right. Les Pew in France. The police state on display. You have terror politics playing out, terrorizing citizenry, scaring them into allowing the government to use extrajudicial what else can you say about just going into people's homes that haven't done anything, arresting them, putting them under house arrest because they are under suspicion of possibly protesting and using free speech? If that's the kind of world that the people in France want to live under, I don't know what to really say about that other than, this is being operated out of New York, the NYPD, just like they were working with the FBI, putting a media blackout over Ferguson. They've been doing intel and reconnaissance there, and not to mention all of the other issues with the event itself. Although I don't find the event, I think that many people look at, it's cui bono. And I said this last week, and I don't have a whole lot more analysis on the bigger players. I think that the manhunt, the chase, the kills, all of the people that they have rousted in Brussels and in Italy, how many of them they've killed conveniently, that's something that turns into really a novel. It turns into a soap opera for me, a novella. So I'm not really interested in that. I look at the state and all of the things that the French government is able to do. And, of course, I believe 9 times out of 10, I believe that most of it's BS. Most of it. most of what you see on TV, most of the current affairs that the media focuses on are trivial at best. I mean, I'm one of these people that always says, I don't know if we're going forward or backward, if humanity is being empowered through technology, through thought, through reason, or if we're really going backwards into a place where we are docile and easily subjugated. And most people, I think, listening to this definitely think we're going way, way, way backwards. Unfortunately, I find myself, and I feel like I'm on a constant circle. I'm on a calendar of crisis that constantly. No, don't turn off the stream. Anyway, because actually, I need to record the show. Anyway, hope somebody out there's doing it. I'll hit Ken up after the broadcast. Nonetheless, when we get to that point where we just continue to cycle around, you kind of get familiar with it. It is the cycle of fear. Call it what you will. I think that is, the propaganda matrix, the threat matrix, reminding us over and over again why government is needed. So that is going to play out. I mean, as far as what actually happens at COP21, it would be anyone's bet. I looked at how the activists and people, even in my family, and I love them to death. I really do. I love you. But, thinking that the Trans-Pacific or the big pipeline being shut down from Trans-Canada, that this is a huge environmental feat, and it was for carbon emissions and climate change. And really, when you look at a large-scale oil pipeline versus what is happening today, and that is that Berkshire Hathaway is making a lot of money. We'll talk more about that and take your phone calls. It's Blacklisted Radio. Stay tuned. You can call in 800-313-9443. You can text me at 512-222-3067. Love to hear from you. Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg, that guy, and Bill Gates are joining forces to invest in clean energy technology. Just a couple more of the participants there that would like to see more money for themselves. And it's always, a great thing in their minds to be philanthropists. And that's really, I've met a lot of really ultra rich people in philanthropy and being able to go to these ballroom galas and private parties with other people like Elon Musk and of course, the political elite, ugly Hollywood, as I like to think of them. They get to go there, and then they'll have Bono, and they'll get some music and maybe talk to Sting. I mean, it's a big deal. It's a big party. It's a bunch of peacocks fluttering about, and that's what I really think most of this will come down to. Warren Buffett actually is a huge, huge Obama supporter. So when you hear about those oil bomb trains, which is, I don't know, every couple weeks we have one go off, train crashes, and it's muckety-muck. It's bad. That's going to, of course, continue to profit Warren Buffett, not having the Trans-Canada Pipeline, and the Keystone XL, or any of the other extensions. Just not in the U.S.'s interest. It's good for the oil trains. And if you look, if you're near a railroad anywhere where I'm at, in Round Rock, Texas, you can watch plenty of Herzog and other oil trains going down to the Gulf to the refineries, the few that are still left here in the United States. So the oil has not stopped flowing, all of you people out there. There's a contingent of those that would like to just stop everything. They would like to live without power. They would live without power if somehow they could have magic Wi-Fi. If they could just have Wi-Fi and tablets that never needed to be charged, a lot of people would be okay with that. It's kind of that new urban minimalist movement where you like to think that you're not having a huge climate impact. And I'm not, I'm not trying to be one of these, facetious a-holes when it comes to, commending people for trying to do the right thing, because, most of my life I thought I was doing the right thing, and it wasn't the right thing by far. And, I still find myself today trying to figure out what the absolute right thing to do is, because it's important that, we don't dismiss real environmental issues. We don't dismiss the real human impact. But when it comes to these douchebags stealing money hand over fist, and then of course what they do is they insure it, just like the subprime mortgages. They know that these systems will probably fail, but what they can do is they can bet against them, and there's plenty of profit to be made whether it fails or whether it succeeds. And therein lies the problem, where the only people that have a risk in any of these new climate schemes are the actual taxpayers, or to the deficit that can never be paid. Those are the people that are really, you're the only one that has anything to lose in all of this. And when people are underwater, if the seas do rise, there's people that say they're not. There's people that say they are. It's hard to know what to believe. The glaciers are getting bigger. They're getting smaller. They're getting bigger. They're getting smaller. I don't know if I would ever really, truly believe much these days if I didn't see it for myself. I mean, because you can find almost anything to validate your personal opinion. And that is the circus. That is the political theater that we have today. And that is these, these type of, new powers, new legal contracts, because quite frankly, the U.S. government and the world body through the IMF and the World Bank and the Bank of International Settlements and the central banks, they're investing your money, really. That is, they provide protection, security, allegedly, and they do your bidding in your best interest. When Obama gives $100 billion to the IMF, it's better than fixing potholes in your county. It's better than getting your children access to water that hasn't caught on fire because it's fracked or whatever it may be. I mean, the trillions of dollars needed to rebuild the U.S. infrastructure is there, and so many people, not just in the United States, are getting really, really, I think, tired of the status quo. And some people are even going crazy, or maybe triggered to go crazy. Might as well talk about the that's where it's at. Where did this go? Yes, our latest shooter, our latest crazy to get the debate for gun control moving is nothing less than a total mess. He is the perfect person to scream something, allegedly, according to a witness, about stop the baby parts. So we have the Planned Parenthood shooter. He, according to The Pundit, which is semi-reliable source, has Gateway Pundit has him the person that he killed. He killed 3, by the way, including police officer Garrett Swayze, and he ended up wounding several others in the shootout at the Colorado Springs. Always something weird going on in Colorado too. Planned Parenthood clinic. He's originally from South Carolina. He looks like it. Now, I don't know if this is because he is absolutely schizophrenically crazy, but he is not a Republican, although the Republicans talked about this. I saw Meet the Nation. They were asking Donald Trump what he thought about it. I mean, the political theater, if you just turn it on for 10, 15 minutes and listen to it for a moment and turn it back off, you realize that it is such a production for the consumer. It really is. But anyway, it doesn't matter because the talking points are already there. Gun control, screenings for those, putting restrictions on ammo. I mean, I could just go through the litany of things that people that already wanted that. I mean, these are people that are already just pining for them to be validated. See, I told you, I'm right. We just have to take every gun and prepaid bank card, whatever it is, to protect you from people like this maniac, Robert Louis Deere Jr. He is, according to his gender, he's female, birth year 1958, and he's an unaffiliated voter. Now, is this just, I could see somebody just, whatever, I'm a woman. Now, what does it mean? Does it really mean that he identifies as a woman or is transgendered or something else? And that's what I think, the Gateway Pundit's even trying to couch this piece as, is that it doesn't really matter what the truth, what is politics, if he went to my website or yours, or where he dressed for pantyhose, if he was a cross-dresser. None of those things are relevant. And most of those stories are not true. They're not true. They're fabricated. And if you poke them with a stick, they would deflate. I mean, they're not even a paper tiger. I mean, by and large, so much of the Paris attacks, I've been watching countless videos about staged actors being interviewed over and over again, the B-roll team. And I think there's, out of 100 of those people, there's probably at least 1 or 2 that do work for the State Department or the bourgeoisie. And they report things, they get the message out about what needs to be done, how they feel. They get an articulated point that can be used as a soundbite. And so that's not dipping off into the whole other, all of these things are crisis actors, and did we ever really see the dead bodies? Because, from my perspective, and it's probably just a lazy perspective, quite honestly, I can't validate or see those, things. And so I'm not going to go on a chase through hours upon hours of time, because the results are in, and these stories, because we're in this cycle over and over again, or only remain relevant for a few days. So, of course, Carpe Diem, that was the motto of the last podcast and should be this one as well. Seize the moment, seize the tragedy, do not let it go to waste. And that is what Barack Obama has said. He's already been talking like every month. Well, now that I'm in the end of my tenure, it's an unfortunate thing, because he believes that he could win the presidency again. His words, not mine, but that he would like to do more about gun control, feels bad that he hasn't done enough about gun control, wants to use an executive order to do something about gun control. Although I don't know if he could really be the messenger for that agenda. I think that there's just too much resistance on a state and especially local level, and there would be a breaking point where you would have some huge divisions. We're already seeing that. I mean, when it comes to popular opinion, which, popular opinion doesn't matter much. According to popular opinion, Kim Kardashian's cooler than I am. And let me tell you, you can go hang out with Kim Kardashian, and that would be flashy, and you probably eat, amazing food, and you listen to some weird poem from Kanye West, and you think, yeah, that's okay, that's good. But hanging out with me is even better than that. Promise you. So, public opinion isn't always right. Public opinion, or even the minority opinion, in my case, it doesn't necessarily mean much. But 1 in 4 people, according to Gallup, think the government is more of a threat than terrorists. And this is even after all the rhetoric and the produced talks. It's interesting to see what's happening in the Ukraine. The U.S. is now moving up to supply even more weaponry and even more training assistance, and possibly surface-to-air missiles and other things that go missing in Libya, in the Ukraine, which is really not getting the attention because of the war drums and the standoff and the Turkish shoot down of the Russian jet and the airliner going down in Egypt. I mean, each one of these events has really made a definite schism in this plan. And, we've talked about Operation Syria, Target Syria. I did a big expose on that a few podcasts back, which I'm pretty measured about how awesome it was. But focusing on the current situation in Syria and looking at all these geopolitical moves and even events post really the Olympics, and we've seen tit for tat with Russia, with the United States, and Europe. And so all of them are trying to have a strategic plan or a different type of boots on the ground strategy in Syria. Syria has become the magnet. It's almost a Bermuda Triangle waiting to happen for military planes and a place where we could see a real international crisis incident take place. And I would say within the next few weeks, although, we've been in this for almost 4 years now. It's kind of not you necessarily, but in the support, in watching the U.S. support of this civil war, for lack of a better term, an oustering, a color revolution that went stale, whatever it is that you want to call the situation that we have in Syria today. I think that the U.S. still is willing to pull back its teeth when it comes to Russia and trying to use the international community to force it. That's not really, that's not just my analysis. That's really the talking points of why the Saudis lowered gas prices, paid $1.75 today. It's amazing. One of my huge failed predictions. I never thought gas prices would go back down. I never thought it was going to be up, probably about $10 per gallon at this point. So I guess that's one thing to be pleasantly surprised about. Geopolitical warfare and economic warfare sometimes benefit the few, and they're not benefiting the people of Russia or any of the other sanctioned countries. But the Russian economy has stood the test, and so now we have quite a stalemate, because that was really what the U.S. was trying to accomplish by crushing the Russian support for the Syrian president, Bashar al-Assad. And, this comes right after a little heyday vacation with Bashar al-Assad and his wife going to Russia without the U.S. allegedly knowing. so many of these stories that come through the mainstream media. I have to chuckle at, because I've said it before, I'll say it again. How much of it's true depends on how much you are willing to believe and how creative your imagination can be, because you are a fan of the state. Sorry. Anyway, to go back, pretty interesting cocaine scandal, because, of course, with the refugee crisis, with the TPP, the nails being turned in the heads of the French, it's a convenient time to blame the right-wing nationalists with a cocaine conspiracy. All right, final segment on the other side. Don't go anywhere. It's Blacklisted Radio. It's always about money. So, impacts of Turkey's aggression against Russia. The Turkish Stream is dead. Disruption of gas pipeline routes to the EU. This out of the Washington Post. Is Russia's economy in crisis? So, we talked about the possible blockade that would be really paralyzing to Turkey, as well as the Russian government, if they did actually shut down the Straits of Hormuz, because they have so much economic interdependence. And so, it's kind of I think it's a breaking point, a strategy of tension almost by the U.S. between partners and allies and not so friendly allies in Europe. The South Stream project and the Turkish Stream were supposed to supply the Europeans with gluts of gas, up to 67 billion metric tons annually. And this is going to be a huge missed opportunity for the United States of America. Conveniently so, the war in Ukraine stopped that. And so we're seeing now the economic melees or economic strains that the U.S. is forcing upon Europe. Of course, with the Ukrainian sanctions, a lot of the people being hurt are the ones that are being targeted with terrorism, especially Brussels, France, other countries that have new allegiances. Where they lie and how deep they may go, I think, is, to use a word twice in a show, should be measured. Whether or not France and Russia will actually join because of economic interests. They sold their last ship to the Chinese that they were supposed to sell to the Russians, and now they're making their own islands, and the U.S. doesn't like that much either. Not much either, because of all those economic partners in the Philippines and others that we pay, they pay, we provide security. We are we are the hand, we are the blood and the body when it comes to that. So, looking at these latest developments, Europe is more than likely going to have to look towards the U.S. to continue to supply them with energy, as far as U.S. companies, and it has routed the Russians from these huge oil contracts. So that's the big problem, because you have what's the most important in this little geopolitical location I like to call Pipelineistan. And so that's why Bashar al-Assad has to go. But we're talking about, probably over $100 billion in development being lost in the South and Turkish Stream pipelines. So, earlier we were talking about TransCanada, the Keystone XL, and how that's helping Burlington, a.k.a. Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, Microsoft. So, big supporters of Barack Obama. So, this is the game. Karl Rove said it. He said, we are acting and we are actors, and this is just a game. And you out there listening will judge their acting and well, it's pretty piss poor. We see right through it. So do you. That's why you're listening to the show. I want to thank you for doing so. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it entertaining. If you did, please continue to support in all the various ways that you can find at blacklistedраdio.com. Until next week, take care.